Disability and Culture, running a really cool group called NEF, which in Spanish is Niños Especiales, Familias Fuertes, so special kids, strong families, right? And so the piece that, and I also do have the good fortune now to be adjunct faculty on our UR-LEND cohort through Utah State. So I am just so honored to help facilitate this panel discussion because the thing I learned, I'm a clinical social worker by training, spent like nearly 30 years at Primary Children's. It is one thing to learn how to help people. It is another thing to be in community with self-advocates, with folks with lived experience, and to truly learn from them and not think I know better because I studied, right? Like, what the heck do I know? I've never walked in their shoes, right? So I'm just super excited for you to hear from, we have several providers as well as self-advocates here. And so we're going to start the panel, if you will. Anna will start us off and we'll just go to the right. If you guys will just start with introducing yourselves, that would be super awesome to the audience, okay?
Okay, so my name is Anna Liquin. I work for the University of Utah at the College of Nursing. I'm a program manager. I'm also part of the board, but a little bit about myself. I do have mental health disabilities, anxiety, depression, and PTSD. And trying to navigate that is not an easy world, especially as like a Latina. And so I'm excited to like
Yeah, I know.
share about that. Sorry.
Yeah.
I am Cynthia Garbett. I
I
am
don't know
an
that that mic's
assistant
working.
professor at the University
It's
of
on
Utah.
anyway.
I worked also with Anna at the College of Nursing.
It's not on.
There you go. Miss Quiet, now you can speak. You're louder.
I'm Cynthia Garbett. I'm an assistant professor at the U of U College of Nursing. I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. What else about me? I was recently diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I grew up in India and I lived there until I was about 15 years old and then moved here to Utah, Bountiful. So I have a lot of stories.
Hello, my name is Eloy Salazar. I am a student in Cottonwood High School, enrolled in junior year. I am currently 16 years old, and I'm a descendant of Latin American origin, Peruvian and Venezuelan, if you're interested. I speak both Spanish and English fluently. My favorite pastimes when I have time for myself is to play video games, write and draw, and study interesting topics about world history. I was diagnosed with ADHD and autism at an early age. Some people would say that it is very unfortunate to have such a condition, but I see the opposite. In fact, I'll say that it helped me motivate myself to find and learn stuff that I am passionate about. By learning this perspective, I am now learning to become emboldened and proud of myself, no matter how much anybody would think otherwise. Thank you.
My name is Diana Ortiz, and I was actually born and raised in Mexico, and I immigrated around the age of 15 as well. I immigrated to Yuma, Arizona, and then I came here for college to Snow College, which I loved. And then I actually, that's where my love for the rural community began, and I learned what hiking was and all kinds of other wonderful things that I love. And then went to Utah State. I'm a major in social work, and I work primarily with the Spanish-speaking community, the refugee community, and also anybody who wants to apply for benefits such as SSI, SSDI, Medicaid, and all of those type of benefits.
My name is Dedi Ramba. I am originally from South Sudan. I came to the United States as a refugee in 2004 from Egypt, and I call Utah my second home now. I am also the founder and president of a nonprofit organization called the Refuge Group that serves mostly people with a refugee background. I'm also a member of the advisory board of the Multicultural Disability Network. Thank you.
My name's Mindy Mayer, and I was born and raised here in Utah. We currently live out in Vernal, so we're kind of in the rural part of the state, the farmland of the area. And I guess I've been in the wheelchair for 12, 13 years now. We don't really know why. I did chemo and radiation, and there at the end of it, I went to work one day and just couldn't walk. And so we've still been fighting for 13 years for diagnosis and treatments and all that fun stuff. And then I don't know what else. There's lots of other things that they diagnose with that. Fibromyalgia, mental things start happening when you're stuck in a chair for a while. So there's just lots of different disabilities in there.
Thanks, everybody. So we just have a few series of questions, and we promise we'll get you guys out of here before 4. But one of the first things we'd love to start, and I think, Anna, you kind of even segued into it, is maybe can you talk a little bit about challenges and fears that you would have related to that kind of intersectionality of disability and diversity?
Yeah, so I was actually talking to Cynthia about this earlier. So when I graduated from school in 2015, my transition was not an easy one. I actually attempted suicide, and luckily I was self-aware enough to call my mom and tell her this is what's going on. And she was panicking, obviously, as a mother would. And so she came straight home, and the first thought that she had was like, let's just go to Instacare and see what they can do. My mom is much darker than I am. So my mom is from Central America. She has a heavier accent. And they first looked at both of us and they said, well, we can't see her. You will need to go to the emergency room. And so I'm sitting there and I don't have insurance. My dad had kicked me off the insurance at the time. So I had nothing. And so we went straight to the emergency room. And now I'm looking at like a $4,000 bill that I have to pay for. And they're just asking me these questions. They brought in a social worker and she just asked me basic questions and gave me like medication for a few days and then said, go see your provider. That was it. My mom was very upset. She didn't feel like they did anything for me, and the reality is that they didn't. I didn't have insurance. They didn't give me any list of providers that I could go see. I didn't even know that there was a community health center that I could go to. And so we're sitting there scrambling. And what's really difficult about mental health, especially as like a Latina, is that it's not something that you really talk about in the home. And especially like growing up, my dad essentially was like, well, just sort of rub some salt on it. You'll be fine. Like, you'll be okay. Or he'd say, well, in my country, because my dad is also from Central America, this is how we did it. And we're not in his country, and I need support. And so with all of that said, it took us at least almost a month to find someone. This nurse practitioner saved my life. I owe her my life. She actually listened to me. She actually asked the questions, and she actually allowed my mom in the room. And most of the time, if you are not like a Latina or you're not come from a diverse background, your family is very involved. And so she wanted to be in the room with me, even though I'm an adult. But she wanted to make sure that I was getting, like, all of my questions were being answered. And also she was asking questions for me because I wasn't in the right state of mind. I was not sleeping. I was probably getting like an hour of sleep a day because it was pretty bad. And with all of that said, we learned that my community, Logan, did not have the best mental health resources at the time. Just to get seen, like with like a therapist, was impossible. The wait lists were really long, and they still are. And so what my mom did, because we didn't have a lot of money, I was not working, she contacted one of her friends and they did exchange of goods so that I could be seen. So she actually provided their Thanksgiving dinner, their Christmas dinner. Like, that's what my mom did. So my biggest fear is I'm currently pregnant and my daughter will be a biracial child. I don't know if she's going to have disabilities. My husband's also hard of hearing. So I don't know if she may be hard of hearing. I don't know if she'll have depression or anxiety. I don't know. My fear is that one, she's a woman. Two, she's going to be biracial. Is she going to be listened to? I wasn't listened to. Like, that's my biggest fear, is that even as women, our experiences in the like with doctors are very belittled often, or they're like, it's not a big deal. And you're like, but it is. So that's my biggest fear. Sorry, that was really long.
Okay. So when I was diagnosed with type 1, I lost my vision a few days before. I was driving my kids to soccer and it just all came on so quickly. I couldn't even see exit signs. And I thought, oh, maybe I just need glasses. And a few months before this, I could feel that something was wrong with my body. And I remember going in and having labs done. Again, I didn't have a primary care provider because I've never needed one, but I had a friend. Again, when you're in the healthcare field, you're privileged to have colleagues that can write orders for you, and she wrote some lab orders for me. And we got some labs back and everything was normal, but I knew something was off. And then 2 months later, I started losing my vision, and I ended up going in to get my labs redone. And at that time, if you know, the normal blood sugar is 80 to 120, and my blood sugar was 500. And at that time, I thought, okay, I guess I should go into the ER, and I did not want to go, but I ended up going. And while I was at the ER, they looked at me, and by that time, within a few hours, my blood sugar was 900 at that point, and I couldn't see anything, and I was just laying on the bed. And the providers came in, and again, they told me, oh, okay, well, looks like you can take metformin, but we don't give insulin in the ER. So you can go home, and this was a Friday night, and they said you can follow up with a family or a primary care provider. And again, I'm in the healthcare field. I'm privileged to have health insurance and be there. And most often when we go in asking for help, we don't know what's wrong, but we know something is wrong. And in this situation, I was laying it out for them where I was saying, I'm pretty sure I have type 1 and I just need insulin. And they said, no, we can't give you insulin. We don't give insulin in the ER. So they sent me home on a Friday night. And a 900 blood sugar, and I was blind, and they printed me discharge instructions where it said, come back if your blood sugar increases. And just my 2-hour stay in the ER, it had gone up by 200. And I didn't have a glucometer. I didn't have any access to resources to, like, again, sure, I'm in the healthcare field, but that's not my expertise in diabetes. So I went home on a Friday night, and luckily my daughter has a best friend that also has type 1. And she called her mom, and her mom's first question was, what are you doing at home? And she came over and she gave me her daughter's insulin. And the first thing she said to me was, you look like you're dying. So what are my fears and challenges? If my dad had gone into the ER and they told him, you're doing fine, you can just go home and follow up with the primary care, my dad would have gone to a fast food place and celebrated, because that's how much trust we place in our healthcare providers. If they say something's fine, you believe them. And you celebrate, right? Because when you've suffered for like months thinking something's wrong and finally you take yourself in and they tell you you're okay, you believe them. And in my situation, when I met with the team in the ER, the question they asked me was, well, you're a healthcare provider. Why didn't you advocate for yourself? And my response was, I'm a patient in this situation. That's your job. So my fear is, what happens to the people that really go in there and place their full trust and are hoping that you will advocate for them? Because isn't that what we as healthcare providers should be doing? Because when we're vulnerable and when we're in a state of suffering, we don't know what to do because we're fearful. And when fear sets in, you know what anxiety does. It shuts you down and you can't think clearly. And that was my history. And I struggle with trusting the healthcare system right now. And I struggle and fear what the future is for my children. And I fear for people that don't have resources. and don't have the privilege to have friends or like people in the healthcare field that would step in and give them insulin.
Since I was little, it was hard for me to socialize with other people. I once severely lacked skills with communication, diet, and emotional response. Another hurdle was that I regularly still struggle with understanding the perspectives and challenges other people have, especially with my mother and father. This made me disappointed and mad with everyone else, and especially with myself, whom I thought I had most fault with my poor skills. So when I was in elementary, I was involved in some incidents related to my poor emotional responses. These incidents were related, sorry, these incidents were related to the events of bullying and miscommunication that I suffered throughout those years. Because of this, I developed a deep prejudice and narcissistic view towards other students of my age, a prejudice that made me believe that all the others are stupid because they think of me as unfit. Therefore, I have to be very defensive and have a low profile. This is a belief that I still struggle to undo. On another note, these events helped me to understand that I cannot tolerate bullying and discrimination towards me, and by any means necessary, I have to reach out to people who can help me and for me to learn to defend myself from sick, uncaring bullies. A notable challenge that I experienced over the last 9 years was my accessibility, or lack thereof, in receiving services to help me develop in learning and understanding responsible skills to work alongside my condition of autism. Whether it be an ineffective plan or not receiving proper help in crucial moments, it has affected me a lot recently after the supposed conclusion of the COVID pandemic and the lockdown.
Well, I was going to go in a different direction when that question was asked in terms of the people that I serve, but it looks like everybody's giving some type of personal experience, and I thought, oh, well, I'm not sure. But I think, I guess going back to the healthcare situation, I do have, as I serve the community of Spanish-speaking, the Spanish-speaking community in Cache County, I have encountered a lot of kind of similar situations when it comes to receiving healthcare services. And so I have been trying to, I have gone with them in person to provide the interpreting or just simply help them understand that, because yeah, in my cultural background, we do trust authority a lot. In general, we trust authority, and so if a doctor says you do this, you do what the doctor says. If your teacher says you do that, you do what the teacher says. And it's not necessarily, I think if you believe the teacher is really caring, then usually the result is good, right? But so that's my professional experience. And so right now, I think through a series of miracles, call them whatever you want to call, I have been trying to, how do I advocate for individuals that go to like the clinics or the hospitals? And I have been, I feel very honored that I was selected to be on the hospital, on the regional hospitals executive board recently, and in specifically representing my community. And so I will be able to advocate for those things that I saw through all these 11 years of helping individuals access healthcare services. And in terms of my personal story, this may sound kind of funny, but I have also had a hard time trusting some of the medical help here in my community, mostly because the times that I have experienced episodes of anxiety, that's my main disability, I have been put on medication that have just made it worse every single time. So I ended up traveling all the way to Mexico, where I grew up, and I was put on different, I don't know, I don't know what difference is, but I don't know if the system is just, I don't know, but the medications that I have been put on twice when I've gone over there and gone to different doctors is working miracles. So I have no clue. But see, in my case, I have to travel all the way, and I had to take a 3-day leave from my work to go do that recently. And those 3 days I used, mostly because I was out of vacation, I just took no pay so that I could go get on the right medication, right? And so, I mean, it's great, and my doctor did a great job. But it's just one of those things, yeah, it's just that the barriers that you encounter. And so I don't know. I think I just hope people, as I don't know, as healthcare providers, if anybody here is in that field, that we take the time to try to understand where people come from and help them. I don't know, listen, I guess. I feel like you believe that you may know how your body works, and trust the professional, but also the professional trusts the patient. Or, I don't know. That's something that I.
So my answer is going to be a little bit different because it's not going to be from the perspective of a self-advocate, but it's going to be from a perspective of a service provider. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a founder of a nonprofit organization. So my fears and my concerns are, with globalization, now diversity is increasing, is on the rise because, people are migrating from place to place, cultures are, becoming merged together. So diversity in itself is increasing. And at the same time, with advancement in, medical technology and stuff like that, diseases that like were in the past that would, kill children at a very early age, now children are able to survive sometimes until even adulthood, which is a good thing, of course. But then now we have a situation where you have diversity increasing, and then you have disability increasing. At the same time, while actually the system is not designed to address these kind of issues, because, for instance, in the school system, we know that the school system is designed in such a way that it caters to the needs of people who speak English as their first language. But now with the increase of diversity and people speaking languages other than English and stuff, that becomes very challenging to students that do not speak English as their first language, for instance. But at the same time, I recognize that it's going to be very hard to make those changes or make those adjustments because it's going to be very costly. For those of you who attended the last presentation in room number 1, we talked about, there was a talk about, changing the sidewalk to accommodate accessibility for people, for instance, with wheelchair, right? But I mean, to do that, it's going to be very expensive. So it's the same concept here. We have a system that is designed to cater for the needs of certain populations. Now, all of a sudden, you have an increasing population that does not fit into that category. So to make that adjustment is just going to take a while, and it's going to be very expensive, of course. It's very costly. If we bring this to the attention, of course, of our decision makers to really take that into account and to get the buy-in from them so that they understand the importance of now trying to make adjustments to our infrastructure to accommodate the different groups that we have now.
I have a lot of challenges, I think, with my disability. Some days my greatest accomplishment is that I'm actually wearing pants. That's quite the undertaking just to get dressed. Sometimes it takes me 45 minutes, and people don't understand that I'll get there, but I'm probably going to be late just because I have a hard time doing things. One thing I run into a lot is the wonderful thing we call ADA. ADA was a great idea. But there's a very big difference between being ADA compliant and being wheelchair accessible. Things that people don't think about, for instance, like a door, the threshold, sometimes they have a little tiny bump. That little bump is a great idea until you tip forward in your wheelchair. Our town, we live out in Vernal, it's very rural. Our town is known for their beautiful flowers on our main street. They've been recognized in national magazines, so they love them. But the flower pots are sitting on the sidewalk. Well, my wheelchair, I can't get up and down the sidewalk. So if I need to go downtown for anything, I get to drive down Main Street, a highway at 35 miles an hour. I'm good. I can keep up. And that's just what it is. That's our life. People don't think about those kinds of things. And the problem I run into is I can count how many people live in our town in a wheelchair on one hand. So we're not that important. The national magazine's more important than those 5 people, that it affects. one big challenge. We've talked a lot about the medical industry. When I go to doctors, I'm usually seen as the fat lady in the wheelchair. And if I just lose weight, everything will be fine. But the thing they don't realize is I didn't gain this weight until I was in a wheelchair. And I like when they say, here's 3 pills that the side effects are going to make you gain weight. Oh, but go ahead and lose weight this week, okay? It's not even logical. Things like I need to have a surgery right now, can't have it until I lose 150 pounds. If anybody wants to tell me how to do that, I would love to listen. They told me I could take away my pills. 2 of the pills they want me to quit taking are pain pills. You don't want to see me without them. I would curl up in the corner and cry all day long. So that's not an option. And these are things that I face every day. I had to put some notes here. One of the other things, part of this question is fear. What do I fear? And what fears do I have? When I first ended up in the wheelchair, I had a lot of fear. A few years ago, I kind of had a change in the way I look at things. And now my perspective is, what do I have to fear? What's the worst that's going to happen? I'll end up in a wheelchair. I'm already there. One of the things where fear comes into my life is usually from other people. They're afraid to ask me why I'm in a chair. They're afraid to ask what they can do. And it's almost like it's a topic that we can't talk about. But in reality, I can make jokes just like you can. You know, it doesn't hurt my feelings if you make a joke about somebody in a wheelchair. I probably know them all. Or if you do something, ask, or you say something about it, or ask if you can help me hold the door open. Those things aren't offensive to me. Those things help. So I really don't have a lot of fears. Mine are a lot of challenges. The other challenge that I have is people don't realize that just because this part of my body is disabled, this part is not. Like, I still have a brain, I still have a personality. I'm not mentally disabled because I'm physically disabled. And I get treated like I'm mentally disabled probably on a daily basis. People talk to me like they talk to a little kid. They talk baby talk. Usually I talk baby talk back. You got to return that kindness, but that's kind of where it is in life. That's it. Oh, I don't know the next question. Wait. Queen of the day, that would be fun. In our area, we don't have a lot of resources. Things like down here, you guys have the bus system to get around. Out in Vernal, you can stand there with your thumb out all day, no one's stopping. And there's no buses. So there's the only resource we really have is the lab from, the name just escaped my brain. Just say it, dude. I can't read your hands. UATV lab. Sorry. Sorry. This is what happens when I get in front of people. I can't remember things. They do have a branch out in Vernal, and they have been an amazing asset. When my chair breaks down, they're there to help. They help tell us where to buy chairs, because it's a hard thing even to know where to get one. And so they do a lot of the in-between work. And that has been our biggest asset to us, biggest resource. If I was queen for the day, I would definitely have more resources. And I think the biggest resource I would want is more education. I think for medical industry, every business owner should know what it takes to have somebody that's disabled in your establishment. Just education, just in general.
Trying to remember the question, but anyway, it's to do with resources, right? So let me start with that. So again, well, again, as a service provider, I am going to mention a couple of things. First, yeah, of course, I mean, I agree with the education part. It's very important, education slash training. A lot of times I go to places where people who are underserved receive their services. You would just wonder, I mean, what kind of training the people who are serving them went through, because looks like because they are this is a group of underserved people, whether the people that are delivering the service are properly trained or not doesn't seem to matter a lot. So this is a constant thing that I've seen in a lot of settings where people who are underserved receive their services. So what I do with my folks, I mean, yes, I have a nonprofit organization, but I have only volunteers. I don't have like you know, employees who who work. But what I tell them, or what I also do, I do it and then I ask them to do the same thing, is to just equip ourselves with training. And one of them is trauma-informed care. A lot of times, people just don't appreciate the importance of just learning the basics of trauma-informed care. So I try to look for resources available I could not find here in the state of Utah or in the United States, but I was able to find the link online, and it's a e-learning series, something to do with trauma-informed care. It's out of Alberta in Canada. So I took that training, and there's a certification that you get, and I also encourage the volunteers that work with me to do the same, so that when a client comes, you know how to best serve the client with that kind of training that you have. Another thing is something called Unite Us. I don't know how many people are familiar with this platform. It's a platform that helps coordinate services. For instance, somebody comes to you and is requesting a kind of a service that you are not able to provide. But then you would be able to look into that platform, which other organizations, whether in that area, depending on the zip code, you can search and find. You will find, for instance, the organizations that provide that kind of service, and then you can refer the client to that organization so that they can be taken care of. And then there is a tracking system. Once they receive the referral, you will get confirmation, and then after some time, you will follow up with them to see if the service has been delivered to the client. So the platform is called Unite Us. It's mostly funded by Intermountain Health, and some other organizations, I believe, are involved. If you're a nonprofit organization, a very small one like mine, for instance, you can create an account for nothing. I mean, they don't charge you. But if you're a middle size or a big organization, then based on certain criteria they have, then you may be charged a certain amount of money to create the account. So I found that that platform is really very helpful, because that way I don't have to turn away any client, because when somebody comes to you, you don't know everything, so it's not good to turn away somebody. So at least you know where to refer them. So that's what I use.
Going off of Mindy's and Didi's comment, I think that, yeah, education is huge on any topic, on just anything that we are not very familiar with, right? And being able to know somebody from their perspective. And in terms of the referral system that he was telling us, I do believe that when I try as a direct service provider, when I refer somebody to an agency, I do try to know who I want to send them to and what this person does, rather than just say, so in our area, we have BRAG, which is the Bear River Association of Governments. Within that agency, there are so many services that are provided. And so when people come to me and say, well, I need help with housing, I could say, oh, go to BRAG. Well, that's not very helpful, I think, if I just say that. So then, but if I know somebody at BRAG, if I, as a service provider, I know what the resources out there are, then I can make that more of a easier transition for this person to receive the assistance they need. So I have connections at that agency that I can literally refer to and say, call this number. This is their direct office number. This is usually the process to access that service. And so that person goes there with a little bit more of that, understanding, okay, this is how I'm going to get help there. But if I could be queen for a day, kind of like this, and with my experience with the healthcare system and having to travel so far to get what I need, I guess I would just like our system to be more accessible to everybody that resides and lives and partakes of this beautiful place we live in. And in that sense, whereas in terms of economic, I mean, I don't even know that where we're just like if how do you say that? At least where I came, there's private and there's social healthcare, right? And you have the option, right? So if you have the means to pay out of pocket or there's slide fee scale, or is there just other ways you get maybe, I don't know, you get to see the doctor and you get to have more choice in everything you get to do. But if you don't, there's still some way to subsidize some of that, and you still get to see the doctor. And so I don't know. It's just there's a better way to do our healthcare system, and I think most of us can agree with that. In general, to be more accessible to every single person and circumstance and situation that you're in, because insurance or no insurance, we shouldn't be culture, like language, whatever the situation be that you're accessing this system. If you could just have that good experience through from the beginning to the end, I would make that I don't know, I would make that happen if
Well, so answering on the both questions that has been asked, before I turned 7 years old, I participated in services that provided cognitive behavioral therapy throughout my youth. As stated earlier, this helped me to overcome problems in communication, diet, and emotional response. During my years in schooling, I joined in on plans related to 504, and I am currently in an IEP plan, which helped me in completing assignments with ease and always effectiveness. In 2 separate years, I was involved in 2 DSPD programs in which I participated in recreational activities, which it was a lot of fun, let's be honest. And then last year, I took part in a renewed session of therapy that supported me with problems in anxiety and emotional response. For the past 10 years of my life, these services have helped me a lot in learning important mental skills, which opened a lot of doors for my present and future. But of course, this was all possible thanks to the help of amazing individuals like my teachers, tutors, mentors, friends, and family, who've all done their part in helping me succeed. For and for recommendations on how to improve these products, I can only answer two broad but clear answers. First, everyone should have access to these critical services. And second, these same services need to be effective in caring for the people they are helping and serving. In our present day, the people here in the United States know fully well the plutocracy that is controlling our medical and insurance systems, a plutocracy that aims for economic growth instead of human care. Heck, the United States is the richest country on earth, and yet it won't offer basic public services like universal health care to its own citizens. Okay, this is how I said. Instead, we have to slave away and save every penny possible for us to even afford such a luxury. My point is, if we can have the possibility to have affordable services that improves our well-being, in my case, assistance with our mental health, we would eliminate unnecessary difficulty that millions of people suffer through every day, and we would eliminate the unnecessary difficulty that millions of people. Oh, sorry. The financial and we wouldn't have a lot of financial problem that we would finally begin to achieve, and we would finally begin to achieve economic stability. For my second proposal, the institutions who provide these helpful services need to understand the struggles that we face every day, as mentioned earlier, and have to take action to provide the help that is desperately needed. Alongside economic limitations, we also have limitations in our access to such resources like therapy and medication. A lot of people have been through the experience of being on waiting lists for long periods of time. Some have waited years to receive necessary help, but a lot of us have also been rejected in getting such services. There has to be more involvement and investment, both physically and economically, to improve the quality and effectiveness of these institutions that provide these helpful benefits. If we can achieve this, a lot of people will thrive, prosper, and generally have better lives and opportunities. And, of, and these institutions will be highly and unanimously respected for their contributions to society. But also, on a final note, these providers need to understand that we are human. We're not a disease. We're not failures. We're human. People like to think that conditions like autism can be cured, but that is just a cold and apathetic view. It's like saying that we will save the planet by destroying it, which is just a ridiculous perspective. They may see us as crazy, strange, and stupid, but we know that is actually them who are unveiling their insecurities about themselves. We will not be sidelined as outcasts, for we will continue to share our voices to the world. We will not be silent.
I don't know if I can follow that. Everything, like it's all been said. Um, really, yes. I think continuing to share our stories, because some of us are naturally empathetic and we can practice that cultural humility and listen when our patients come in and still, set aside our egos. Because I think some, egos make, when you use your ego to make decisions, that's when you forget the human in front of you. So for me, my dream would be, I wish there were healthcare providers, and I wish we could bring everybody here and share stories, like what's happening here, because stories connect people. Stories is what makes us be humans. It's what gets people to see, hi, I'm a human, you're a human. Let's connect, let's talk. So yeah, lots of great resources already shared.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, that was so good. You someday will make a great speaker. You already are. So, but I was just thinking about what everyone was saying, and some of the services that I've used was really the community health center, and I don't qualify for their stuff anymore. I'm very grateful and privileged that I work for a university that has great insurance. It's one of the best in the state. And so it's really great in that sense. But I wish that other people had the same opportunity. And so I would say that having equitable healthcare would be fantastic. Trusting in our providers more and them trusting us and knowing what we're saying. So if we're saying that something's wrong, for them to actually believe us. And my biggest thing is a holistic view. So when I'm saying a holistic view, I'm talking about them seeing us as a person, and being able to connect those pieces. So like Diana had said, I actually was in Mexico last year, got sick because I have IBS, and I went to the doctor, and the doctor was amazing. And I have a hard time with physicians. I trust PAs and nurse practitioners more, because they look at me as an individual. And this doctor was phenomenal. I mean, he asked me, what did I eat? He asked me, do you have anxiety? Do you have this? Did you take anything? He literally asked me these questions that most of the time, if I'd gone to the ER for IBS, which I have, they just give you medication and then say to follow up with your provider, which is what happened. And this doctor was like, no, this is what's going on. This is what you need to do. And I loved that. And since then, I encourage people to actually research their providers. And so that's a resource that I would say is please research them. My OB has never practices in the state, but he did not get his license in Utah. He practiced in New Mexico and in California. So that means that he actually has experience with diverse people that look like me, that aren't just white. They actually understand my culture. They understand that my mom sometimes comes to my appointments because my husband can't go, and he doesn't mind. And also just honestly, like if I was a queen for a day, I would love less wait times for mental health providers. I have been on a wait list for 2 different agencies for over a year. So I use EAP because it's just easier. I would like it for it to be affordable. I would also really like for therapists to not just, I mean, because it's really hard to vibe with a therapist. I've like, you might find one and you're like, this is great. And then you realize you're not for me. And so being able to actually have multiple opportunities to actually meet with different therapists would be nice. I would really love for therapists also to be able to have education on working with mental health individuals that from diverse backgrounds. I'm also a domestic violence survivor. I grew up in a domestic violence home. And so being able to understand the intersectionality of domestic violence, mental health, and culture would be amazing. But oftentimes they see those as like 3 separate things. And that's not how it works because we're people. So just like echoing what everyone has said, I really wish that we would be seen as humans, and that we would be believed. And so going to the doctor, that they'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I believe you. Instead of sending you home and you've got like 900 blood sugar and they're like, good luck. Like, I really would love for us to be believed. So that would be my take on that.
So, you guys are amazing. You guys are so inspiring. I hope you guys can hang with us for a little bit more because we're going to try and bring it home with each person sharing either a success story or kind of their final comments or insights for us. So, can you hang with us? We'll just be a little bit. Okay.
Okay, I will
Go
try and
ahead.
make it fast.
No, you're fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
My success story, we were talking and I was like, I don't know if I have a success story. I was just like,
Baby steps, right? They don't
I'm
have to be
like,
massive.
I think my mental health is better. Like, I don't have a therapist. I actually don't have a primary care because my nurse practitioner closed her services. And so now I'm like, I don't have one. But what I would say is my success story is actually talking to my mom and telling her like 10 years ago, calling her and saying, I attempted, I need help. And ever since then, I've tried to be open about it. Not everybody likes to hear that. But I want them to know so that if they are struggling, they can come talk to me and I can say, hey, like, here are some resources online like NAMI and Mental Health America and things like that that you can talk to. That would be my success story, I guess. And then just final thoughts is that I just sincerely appreciate that people are willing to come here and to become educated and to learn. My grandmother, my mom's mom, she got her education was to the 2nd grade level in El Salvador. And the thing that she taught my mom was that education does not have to come from formal institutions. It can come from any source. And so I would just say, just get educated on whatever it may be that would support you and help help your career or whatever it may be so that one day you can actually help someone that maybe comes across your way.
I would have to say my success story might be me. It's made me be a better provider. I think it's made me realize I don't know everything and I'm good with that because it's going to be my patient. My patient is the expert. And I'm here to listen and learn from you because, again, anxiety doesn't look the same for everybody. And if I make that assumption and that's the type of practice I provide, I've lost that patient. Like I'm not doing my job and they're not going to come back to me. And my other thing is I get to teach students now, and I talk a lot about that. Like, what does professionalism look? Professionalism looks like you show empathy, you be respectful, you be kind, you practice cultural humility, you ask questions and you learn about their culture before you tell them what's wrong. Because again, they will give you all the information that you need if you just take even 5 minutes to get to know them. Yeah, it's my own growth that I'm learning, and we're all growing. We never hit a spot where we're like, yep, I'm there. And if you ever think that, there needs to be some self-awareness. And talking to the point of traveling to Mexico, I think when you do those things, it's what connects you to your patient. And if your patient feels like you care for them, the outcome's even going to be better. It's not solely just related to medications. It is often the relationship that you build with your provider.
Right, so this is just question 5, right? Oh, okay. Okay, can you share a successful, so okay. Continuing with my recent experience and starting my new session of therapy last year, I was able to improve and recover from setbacks that were related to my social and emotional interaction. At first, I was skeptical if I would enjoy such a service and thought it was a waste of time. In the first sessions that I went through, I didn't feel like sharing that much, but after later sessions that focused on my interaction and mobility with my family, I felt more confident in sharing some of my thoughts and feelings to my psychiatrist about some of the problems I continue to face. For the following months, my parents began to notice that my behavior and communication was getting better and better every session, and I genuinely felt proud of my accomplishment in taking part in renewed therapy. In parallel with that success, I was also improving in my attempts and cooperation in schoolwork and chore work and home. Obviously, I still have more work to improve on, but with the extraordinary progress that I have made for the past year, it was hard for me to ignore such an achievement. Everything that I have done for the past several months made me remember about a similar experience I had when I was working on a passion project a few years ago. I previously mentioned that a hobby I enjoy doing is writing and drawing. Well, for the past 8 years, I was heavily focused in like comic work. These were things I like to do for myself when I was bored and I had nothing to do during the time. After finishing 8th grade, I spent my summer being heavily focused on creating a comic book, which was tied to a mini series that I have worked on for myself. The reason why I brought this story up is because this turned out to be the biggest project I handled up until lately. The final work consisted of 201 pages, 50 pages of note drawings, and the duration of completing it lasted for 3.5 months of constant work. There were times when I was stressed and felt like quitting on this project, but I continued to push myself towards this goal. At the end, I felt accomplished and fantastic, and it made me feel that I can do anything. This feeling is the reason I continue to motivate myself in order to reach my full and great potential that I have in store.
Thank you, Eli. We all have great potential in store. All of us do. I guess my success story for me is that I'm stable again. But I was talking about earlier that how important it is to have empathy. And I know you don't have to walk in someone's shoes to show empathy, I think. I think some people say, if you go through that experience, you'll know. And sometimes you will go through that experience. But if you don't have experience with mental health or disability of any kind, I think arriving, how to say that? Like, I think the most successful stories I've seen from my consumers that I serve, and then my personal experience, is interacting with professionals or with the community or key leaders, in that when they have these interactions, or when I've had these interactions, the person across from me approaches my situation from a place of compassion and curiosity, rather than right away saying this is what's going on, or also just they want to know, they want to know my story. And I think when I meet with my consumers at Options, I really try not to rush to the appointment. I really book a whole hour every time I meet with people. If I go to their homes, it's better, because then I get to be in their home and know kind of what life is like for those I work with and serve. But I don't know, I think the success stories that I experienced in my consumers saying that when they go to an agency and they're like, well, they didn't speak Spanish, but the lady pulled out her phone and she was trying to help me. Like, that was what I think made a difference for them. It wasn't that the person at that agency could speak their own language or perfectly understood their culture first, for example, but that they were coming from a place of I still want to be able to help you. I will pull out Google Translate and try to figure this out. Something as simple as that. And whether anything, right? Like instead of when Mindy was thinking about just people make assumptions about her situation, it's like, hey, just ask me. I'll tell you my story. There's nothing weird about it, you know? And I think that the more we have these conversations with each other as direct service professionals, and when we are the one that receiving the service, that we kind of, that we both can give and take. And I don't know, I think that's where the success lies for me, what I've seen in my experience. If people really listen to me and really try to understand me, and then I also try to understand them as a direct service provider and not just think that I know best, that's when I think I feel success happens in any interaction and service that we provide.
I don't know if I have a success story to tell, but I'm going to share a success story of the Multicultural Disability Network itself. I happen to be a part of it just because I was the interpreter. I happen to be a person who speaks Arabic. It was an interview with the family from Middle East. That family came to the United States through one of the resettlement agencies. He did not only have 1 or 2 children with disability. I believe he had 3 or 4. Mindy was the one who did the interview, but yeah, he had a number of children with disability, and he is somebody who came here, does not speak English at all, and the resettlement agency that brought him was not equipped to be able to handle such a family with a big number of children with disabilities. So I was happy to be a part of that interview because I learned a lot from his story. And then at the same time, his story was able to identify some of the gaps that are there in the resettlement agencies. We know that they're doing a great job, but of course that doesn't make you perfect. There are always gaps. There's always room for improvement. But that interview is really good. I would encourage people to watch the interview because he identified a lot of things. And if I were somebody working with the resettlement agency or serving a refugee population, I would really learn some lessons from that interview. So to me, that is a success story. So what Multinet is doing, let's continue doing that. And of course, the advocates on the team and myself as a service provider, we continue to shed light on what are the things that need to be done so that we can improve the services that we're doing. Yeah, we may be doing a good job, but that does not mean that we cannot improve.
I think my success story, it kind of changed what I was thinking of as my phone's up here ringing. My success is I'm an archery coach, and it happened after I became disabled. I know I say archery and some of your faces kind of are like, wait a minute. But the thing is I have the largest team in the state that we've built with the most kids. We do youth. We're shooting nationals this weekend. That's actually why we're in Salt Lake, is because we're headed there. My phone keeps going off because all the kids are trying to get ready for the shoot tonight. And the thing is that I would have never thought that somebody in a wheelchair could teach archery. I think that organizations like this and coming together and sharing stories and getting to know other people's walk of life, because we're all on a different path. And we never want to judge somebody else by what we don't see. But sharing is what gives us strength. It also helps us get determination to get things done. I might not do things different. When I shoot my bow, I don't have a wrist. They've had to surgically remove it. So I can't pull a bow with my hand. So my release is made out of a horse hobble. I know, a horse hobble that goes up on my arm, and so I can pull my bow. And the thing is just like everything in life, you have to have that determination and that servitude to pull up your bootstraps and get through it. And I think that we have to come together to make that happen. I don't think if people wouldn't have been there for me, kind of cheering me on, I could have done it. Now I have a lot of critics. I have a lot of people that don't think I can do things. And sometimes I think that's a challenge. And that just makes us want to do it even more. And so I guess that's kind of my last thought, is that we need to be strong. We need to dig deep, and we need to make sure that we come together and move forward. Never judge somebody else, because you don't know what's really underneath that skin. I sometimes wish we could all have it on our forehead, what our struggle is. My forehead's not big enough for all of mine some days, but it would make life a lot easier. And where we don't know, just be kind. Come together and help each other. I guess that's where my final thoughts are.
Your insights, your willingness to be vulnerable and share your personal experiences. So that hopefully, again, wherever we are in that intersectionality of working with folks with disabilities, we have that compassion and sensitivity to truly be partners in the care. So thank you all. It's just so much for sharing your experience. It's been really wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Because I want to be recorded too. I feel so lucky to have shared this space with all of you today. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone. Thanks to our presenters, our panelists, our attendees, everyone that's participated in so many different ways. We couldn't have had this day without all of you here. So thank you so much. I wanted to just quickly say, so we've been, I don't know if you've noticed, but we've been recording everything today, and we plan to save it on our website, and all the resources that all the presenters have been sharing. We will share that with all of you. So look for that. I'll email that out when we have those ready. The last thing I wanted to share is that in the back of your handout pamphlet, there is a survey. There's also some QR codes on the doors as you are leaving, that if you'd rather do it on Qualtrics on a QR, you can do that with your phone, or you can write down quickly before you go. We want to hear your feedback. We want to hear about your experience today, what you loved, what we can do to improve. We hope you enjoyed your time with us. I guess I can't speak for all of our team, but I thoroughly enjoyed today, and I hope you did too. I feel like I learned so much about so many people, and I've just learned how to be a better human. And I hope that that's what you feel like you've taken away today as well. So one more round of applause. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.